Hey, it's Randy Wilburn from I Am Northwest Arkansas. We all know that access to safe and secure housing is crucial for thriving communities. That's why the Northwest Arkansas Council created Groundwork, a program dedicated to addressing the region's workforce housing needs. Whether you're a developer, policymaker, or just someone who cares about housing affordability, become an active participant in shaping Northwest Arkansas's future. Learn more and get involved in the pursuit of innovative housing solutions across NWA at groundworknwa.org. That's groundworknwa.org. Groundwork, building the foundation for a better Northwest Arkansas. Searching for local businesses in Northwest Arkansas just got easier. From restaurants to roofers, boutiques to baristas, FindItNWA.com connects you to the best local businesses with just one click. Discover something local, something great. Visit FindItNWA.com today. Find it fast, find it local, FindItNWA.com. Welcome to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome back an incredibly talented, creative, and former guest of the podcast, Mario Troncoso. You may remember Mario from episode 110, where we talked about his journey as a filmmaker and storyteller. He's lived and worked all over, but he calls Fayetteville, Arkansas home, and that's exactly why today's conversation matters. Mario is the producer and director of a brand new series on PBS called City of Songs, a powerful blend of music, travel, and human connection hosted by artist and musician Stephanie Hahn. The show explores cities around the world from Austin to Barcelona, Stockholm to Seoul, through the voices of local musicians and the sounds that define their culture. It's not just about music, it's about migration, innovation, and the soul of a place. What makes this story even more meaningful to us is that the entire concept and much of the behind-the-scenes work for City of Songs was developed right here in Northwest Arkansas. This globally distributed series is proof that big ideas can thrive and grow in creative communities like ours. So today, we'll dig into the making of the show, Mario's hopes for building a sustainable creative economy here in Fayetteville and beyond, and what's next for this internationally minded, locally rooted filmmaker. Let's get into it.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Mario Troncoso, welcome back to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Randy. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's so glad to have you back. When we first got on the call and I originally heard from Cody Ford from the Arkansas Cinema Society, and Cody is a man about town. He also puts out the Idol Class magazine. Cody's a dear friend, and he had reached out and said that you were working on something special. And so I'm glad that he kind of reconnected us to have this conversation. So it's thank you for coming in and sitting down with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So listen, why don't we get started? Can you briefly remind us here of your journey as a filmmaker and how you landed in Northwest Arkansas?
I started making movies about 20 years ago. It's not something that I always wanted to do, but when I decided that's what I wanted to do it, that was my only focus. And that's how my journey began. I'm originally from Spain. I was on my way to New York, never made it there, but made it somewhere else. When I was able to work with artists, learn the kind of behind the scenes of TV, how TV works, how film works. Early on, I was exposed to documentaries, which I love. I love the process. I love working with real people, unscripted work. And that's been my career ever since. It's been, again, over 20 years. had a TV show 10 to 15 years ago on PBS that was fairly well received, won lots of awards, and kind of that built my career. After that, a lot of opportunities started coming up from LA, from New York, and that's what I did for a while. And everything was going great. Early 2020, I got a massive offer to go to LA, contract of my life. And then the pandemic happened.
Oh my gosh.
And I got stuck halfway between New York and LA. I was in Texas because it's what was home before New York. And at that moment, I started shifting, how can I work during the pandemic? Luckily for me, lots of people trusted my experience, so they reached out with lots of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
They trusted that I could manage the COVID restrictions to make content. I was able to do a couple of documentaries through that. And then through a connection that I have here in Arkansas, they asked if I would be interested in coming to support this art program.
Yeah.
Back then, it was basically like a relief program for the pandemic. How can we help artists that are stuck at home? I took on that. Or, I didn't have to move here. It was a remote thing.
Right.
But I was at a moment where it's like, I want to go meet these people in person. Everybody always talk about consultants come here, they take our money, they go. I heard that a few times. So, well, I'm not that. I'm not a consultant. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
So I came here, spent a couple of weeks, decided to get a house. And I knew my kids will enjoy here. And that's how I started working with artists. I spent my first couple of years here, just working with artists, building film media ecosystems, not only in Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas, but across the state. Got to meet lots of people like yourself. And then that's not really my career. I do it when I'm asked to do. But as soon as things started opening up, I decided it was time to switch back to producing TV, producing movies, which is what I do, what I love. And that's been my journey since then.
And so really, when you think of it in terms of the pandemic being that line of demarcation for you where things switched. And so you kind of came here during the pandemic, right at the beginning. And then in terms of the work that you did with Cash and Ozcast and all of that, that was more of a project in that early stage period. And that's technically, we have Cash to thank for you coming here. Is that the case?
Yeah, well, I was here before Cash.
Okay,
so when Cash was starting, I came here. I was one of the founders of Cash because I was already planning to do a lot of things that were similar to what they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our missions, ambitions aligned at the time.
Yep. And
I thought, well, why try to start something new where I can help somebody else realize their vision?
Sure.
It was my vision, so it was never going to be long term.
Yep.
But yeah, I was there, everything that Cash became at the time, I was involved on that.
Yeah.
There was a point where it became too big and too dispersed for what I wanted to do, and it was time for me to step aside.
Sure.
But I always knew that from the beginning. It was just a temporary thing. So
yeah, well, I always tell people there's a season for everything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, and I think our lives are made up of a multitude of seasons, and each one is going to look different.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I love that. So when you say in reality, then since 2020, since the pandemic and the time spent with Cash, you basically got back into the fold of the work that you had that originally just gave you excitement, right? Which was TV and other programmatic options.
Yes, I have. Most people know me as a director, but behind the scenes, I'm mostly a producer.
Yeah.
And a development producer. So I help people create content from scratch. Most of what never get made, right? So since I left my PBS show years ago, which has been now about 10 years, I work and I have amazing opportunities work with people developing content for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have, I'll say probably about 20 different TV shows in development at any given time.
Yeah.
Some are projects that I spend a year on and then they go on hold, projects that I'm on and off, and then projects that I'm just attached to. And that's like, I tried to develop 2 different TV shows here in Arkansas. One that was going to be filmed here and made a lot of progress. We shot it all around LA, all around the country. Didn't happen because that's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on that process, one project that was always on the back of my mind, right before the pandemic, I have talked to my good friend Troy Campbell, who is also here, founder, executive director of the House of Sons. I've known him for a long time back in Austin, about this project that he kind of imagined over 10 years ago now. It's always been there. It's a friend, so we talk about it every year or two.
Yeah.
And it just happened that I was here. He brought it up a couple of times. I just watched him, and it was just the right time. And I said, well, why don't we give it a shot?
Yeah.
This is my last shot that I'm going to give it to that. So I was in the process of that, going back to business, but also my reality is that I live here in Arkansas.
Right.
So I had to switch. The easy is like, oh, you moved to LA, figure it out who has a project, and then you get yourself in it. It was like, no, we had to kind of go in a different way, And that was like the project that I said, I'm going to do this project.
Sure. So, because I would imagine, like, especially, and I don't know about New York, but especially in LA, things are a lot more organic in terms of happening or in terms of bringing things together. You have all of the pieces that you need for a production are pretty self-contained in LA County and beyond, right? I mean, it's all right there. When you're here in Northwest Arkansas, in the, the far northwest corner of the state of Arkansas, you don't have as many resources that you can rely on.
Exactly. And you have to really commit to that lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And it was my choice, again, because I knew that I have something here. My kids like it here. And I made an effort to make it work. But I learned a lot of things in the process, and it was really hard. If I had been fully in other bigger markets, I wouldn't have to do as much work, and I would be almost like straightforward.
Yeah.
Here, basically, you have to figure it out, even to fly, right? To fly from Arkansas to, like, let's say Montreal, Seoul,
right.
Barcelona is more expensive than if I was somewhere else. It takes longer both ways. And then, every little thing is like, it's going to be more painful.
Yeah.
So, you have to be committed to live here. That's the part that sometimes people like,
It's a challenge sometimes. Yeah. But I mean, obviously there was something about Northwest Arkansas that resonated with you enough to keep your family here.
Yeah. I mean, it was, again, for me, pandemic time, I don't know how I would have experienced the place before. I've been here before. Okay. I'll tell you backstory of that. Actually, I came here for the first time on a production. Probably now 8 years ago. Troy Campbell, who didn't live here at the time, also came here with me. And we came not knowing the place. We were actually going to film South Missouri, do something. And immediately it's like, there's something different happening here. And it piqued my interest enough, as it does to many people, right? They can be, oh, what's happening here, right?
Yeah.
We heard it many times. I remember going with my good friend Alonso, who's also the director of photography on this new show, to Crystal Bridges at the time. And we toured the place. And we always tried to hit museums when we were working, but we were so impressed. It was unexpected, really unexpected, right? So there was something about, for me as an artist and as an outsider at the time. I know I see things in a very different way today.
Yeah.
But seeing the mix of nature and art and something about people trying to create something better that really hit me. Yeah. And then when I came here, the pandemic, and I was giving basically money to help other people, there was the community aspect for me. And that's really what kept me here, because I helped build something that is really hard to have those opportunities.
Yeah. So really it was a community was a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And actually, I have told other people that have relocated here or thinking about relocating here that the community part is really strong here. And it's not unlike other parts of the country. And I'm not saying that Northwest Arkansas has cornered the market on community, but they do a good job of it. They do a good job of it. So I think there's a lot to be said. Let's talk a little bit about the program and just really what sets it apart from everything else. Can you just tell us a little bit more about, what inspired the unique mix of music, travel, and storytelling for this program?
Well, the inspiration, again, I'll give credit to Troy Campbell because he's the one that had the original idea based on his personal experience, right? He was a musician, traveling the world because people were inviting him to places.
Right.
and he got to experience cultures, and he got to experience how people treat artists in other places. And I said, wow, we don't have to all be like starving and healthy and happy. And then he decided to turn that into his mission, right? How can I make other artists experience that, right? So that's, in terms of inspiration for that, that's what I got from him when I met him. And that was really the inspiration to go try to do something similar.
Yeah.
Right? In terms of my personal journey with the project is once I take that idea, we all have ideas, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how can I make this an actual concept that can be produced, that can be sustained, make sense with an audience, and all these things, has a market distribution. So for me, my work has always been, I say 90%, 95% working with artists while trying to make art on my own.
I got you.
So I never follow a format or try not to. And then in our current time is like, how can we connect cultures through music?
Yeah.
Which is a connector of cultures. I know, everybody knows that, just like food is, right?
Right.
So going back to the inspiration, and you mentioned that it's an Anthony Bourdain type of show.
Yeah. Parts Unknown, which was an amazing show. I mean, which he did for years. And actually, here's the thing that can also, because I don't know if you're going for this or you have gone for this, because at the time of recording this, you've already completed the first season, but I don't know if you're going for that timeless aspect of it, because I've gone back and watched episodes of Parts Unknown, and it resonates with me today, even though they were filmed years ago. And that's, it's a tremendous loss to not have Anthony Bourdain around, but he was a very gifted storyteller. And, he captured the minds and the attention of the audience when he would go all over the world and really kind of connect the dots for people.
Absolutely. There is a connection to my work on this case and Anthony Bourdain. Not only because it's easy for people to visualize what it is, but also because in the philosophy, the spirit of the show, and him not being here anymore, I feel it's important for me to continue his work.
Yeah.
Not taking credit for it, but the spirit of it, you know what I mean? I was reading something now about him just this week, a quote, that he was one of the first people on American TV to show people, Americans, not to be afraid of other cultures.
Yeah.
Right? So...
And given in this time and space that we're in right now in 2025, that's a real concept, and actually something that we probably need to dive deeper into, because I think, we're more alike than we are different.
Exactly. Yep.
Country to country, we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah. I met an amazing diplomat years ago when I was at school at the University of Texas, and he said he travels the world trying to mediate conflicts. And he's like, before he gets there, he make a list of 10 things that these two people are going to have in common. And he keeps that on his head throughout the whole meeting.
Yeah.
So that's why we're trying to find places of connection. So when we travel to places, we try to break bread with people, right, on camera, things like that. We try to avoid like big stars. Everybody's amazingly talented, but we try to avoid the big stars because it's not relatable in some way, right? And we also always try to bring a layer on every episode that is not music. And I usually refer to it on paper as a cultural ambassador, someone that is not, often there's always a music connection, but that can give us another layer, right?
Right.
And in terms of whether building something like what Bourdain did, that would be the dream, right? Stephanie, who I love, she's a really good person. She connects to people. We work really well together. But as Anthony Bourdain did on his first show, it takes a minute to find who your persona on the screen is, who your voice is. The voice that we all know of him took seasons, multiple shows to develop. So with Stephanie is to see who she become, right? And giving her the tools, and then she's going to become her own, and then she should be the face of this. It should be like when people think of Stephanie Hahn, they should think travel, music, connection.
Was she your first choice for this, or how did you choose Stephanie? I'm assuming there may have been others that you had considered Was she your first choice for this?
Well, again, because the project it's been going on for a long time, there were other people considered back then, right? Yeah. And then time changes, and then every time there's an opportunity, you reconsider that.
Sure.
When it was like real, this is happening, that's when we were thinking about that. Beside whoever was before, not behind, she was the first choice. There were many other choices, but she was the top choice for me because since most shows like this are hosted by white middle-aged men, very few women, and also travel alone is not usually connected to women. Right? It's also not connected with people of color. And we already assume that, and we are so used to seeing that over and over and over. So having a young woman was part of it. The fact that she's Puerto Rican was also a big factor on me wanting to work with her. And on top of that, she was a great actress. She knows how to work with cameras and with crews. And she's an amazing musician. So the choice for me was
she checked a lot of boxes.
Yeah, it was like, everything was from the get-go. It's one of those that when you think you want someone, it's like you almost don't look anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I get it. So tell us a little bit about the different cities that you went to. How did you choose the cities that were in the first season? And what was can you kind of like walk us through a few of the cities you filmed in and the themes you explored in each one?
Yes, when I first wrote the outline for what a season could be, before we even knew fully that we could accomplish that, we were trying to cover as much of the world as we could within a budget. So there was some limitations, things like there were places that were too far for us, or too hard to get to. Then we look at places that we do have some sort of connection to it, right? And then looking at the schedule, the calendar, like what's happening in all these cities while we are filming, right? So we have at least maybe 15, 20 cities. And it's narrowed down to, 15-8. Austin was always a must because that's where this idea originated. So that's Stephanie's home. So we always wanted to start there. And then...
And Austin was the only U.S. city, right?
Only, yes.
Yeah, okay.
The idea is to have one U.S. city in every season to start the season. So that was a given. We knew that was going to happen regardless of who was the host. Then Barcelona was a choice two ways. One is my home country. I'm not from Barcelona, but it was exciting for me to do it. It's extra motivation for it. Also because as we were planning, the summer solstice was approaching.
Oh, okay.
And the solstice for many people is a moment of rebirth. It's a new year. And we were starting a new project, and it felt meaningful. Also, there's an amazing festival in Barcelona that I thought would be amazing to capture. So we made that happen. And then from that, it was being practical. Okay, once we are there, do we have connections too? Through our team, through Troy, through Stephanie, we have lots of connections in Scandinavia. And we have a lot of connections in Stockholm. And we have an access to meet and interview Spotify. And we couldn't pass that.
Yeah.
So you were asking us about things. For Barcelona, my focus first was picking the city and then figured out how to tell a story,
And that was your personal connection.
And it was my personal connection, but also my focus was me. I'm an immigrant. I've been an immigrant most of my adult life. So how can I go back home as an immigrant?
Right.
So my focus was how migration have affected the city, the music and the culture. Migration from South America, Caribbean, Africa, and a lot from South Spain, right? In Stockholm, our focus was looking at the pop industry. Why this tiny place generates so many hits, how a company as Spotify can be created here and develop and be such a big success, whether you like it or not. That's the reality. And then on and on. So in every city, it's like there's always going to be what, in terms of documentary, you say a topical aspect to it.
Yeah.
Outside of whatever the format of the show is.
Well, and I thought it was interesting that you picked Seoul, which is a huge city for K-pop, right? I mean, I'm trying to think of the K-pop group that comes out of there that's really big, but they're kind of like the Backstreet Boys of the 2010s and 2020s. But you chose Seoul as a city, as a backdrop for this. And what was the fascination with Seoul?
Originally, I wanted to do Tokyo.
Oh, okay.
I was set on Tokyo, but then in terms of music and to be really more truthful to what we were trying to do, Seoul is really the world of commercial music today. K-pop industry moves more money, more hits than hip-hop does at the moment.
Yeah.
And the fun part is that they are really modeling a hip-hop industry, right? They're trying to do whatever hip-hop did.
Yep.
They are replicating that.
There's nothing new under the sun, Mario. Right. You know that, right?
Never. And they even say, it's like, but then what they did is which connects to the show, is then they went to the Scandinavians. Because the Scandinavians know how to make pop music. So it's all like fabricated, right?
Yeah.
It's an industry, it's all fabricated. It's like thousands of people working to develop this talent. It's insane, right? So it's like, okay, let's go there. But the story of K-pop is being told over and over and over. So our focus there was, this is happening, and it's cute and fun, but what else is happening in the city? Or how is this affecting other people? Right. So we never tried to interview any K-pop people. We did interview a producer because we want to have someone to say something about it, but the focus was really on what else is happening here, know? Traditional music, how it's reinventing itself. Independent music, which is tiny compared to other places.
So tell me this, has the popularity of K-pop and the growth of K-pop helped the other musical styles in Seoul?
That's kind of what we're trying to answer with that, and I don't think we do.
Okay.
Because it would probably take a really long time, but it's kind of like it could go both ways. In a way, it's bringing way more awareness to the country.
Yep.
Giving a lot of more opportunities, professional opportunities for people to benefit from that. It's also crashing all the things, right? Because it's so monolithic in a way.
Yeah.
People that are really trying to stay out of that probably will try to stay out of any other system too. So overall, I think I would say it's benefiting because it's creating so much awareness and business. And even if you don't like the music and you live there, it's still creating an industry, right? And at the end of the day, for any professional artist, that's what you need to survive. So, but it is making really hard for other people to maybe do things the way they used to do, But overall, I think most people, even if they don't like it there, they can see the benefit of the industry being there. So,
well, I want to try to land this and make it make sense for our listeners here in Northwest Arkansas. When you think about the local angle, I know a lot of the planning and coordination happened here in Northwest Arkansas, also happened in Austin. Can you speak to how, if any, in addition to what you've already shared about you and Troy, how Northwest Arkansas helped to shape this show? Was there anything that you could point to and say, because of Northwest Arkansas, we decided to do this show a certain way?
That's an interesting one. I haven't thought about that. I think Troy and I have been here through the time that we've been here, probably made a huge impact on the way we related to each other.
Yeah.
And how that affected the show. I think making a show like this is extremely complicated.
Right.
To be totally honest, this show should have never happened. So many things.
But it did. Here we are. And you're talking about a second season.
Right. Because that's the mentality, right? These people, I used to teach film students, lecture a lot. And I usually would say, probably one of you make it here. And it's going to be the one who doesn't give up.
Right.
Right. Not the more talented. So, but I think
Wait, I want to stop you for a second because I think people need to hear what you just said. You said it's probably not the most talented person. It's the one that doesn't give up.
Exactly.
And I've read some biographies. I've listened to some biographies for a lot of people in Hollywood specifically, like Michael Ovitz and some others. And they talk about just the only way that you can really make it, especially in the creative community, is to not give up.
Yeah. That's the one thing. Like everything else, you can solve.
Yeah.
Right. But if you give up, there's no.
Yeah. I mean, it speaks to me too, man. And not that this episode is about me, but when you do a podcast, sometimes you're just like, man, I should just hang this up. And I've done enough episodes, but then I get charged by listening to different people's stories. and I get reminded. And just what you said really struck me, because it's like, man, how often do we get to encounter and experience stories and visual reminders of something that could have just ended up on the cutting room floor and no one would have ever seen it. And I mean, there are movies that are like that. And so, I mean, in your space and in my space, I think it's just a subtle reminder that you have to have stick-to-itiveness and you have to go after what you believe in. Otherwise, it's just never going to happen, because nobody's ever going to care about your dream as much as you do.
Yep. I mean, you have to work really hard, obviously, but if you give up, then that's it.
Yeah. So I know there were a couple of other things that you mentioned, and the reason why I wanted to bring it back to Northwest Arkansas, you talked a little bit about kind of like some of your frustration with the lack of local production incentives that exist here. Like when we talk about filming here, what's your pitch to like lawmakers and leaders here in Northwest Arkansas, here in Arkansas, period, to change that? And although at the time of recording this, I have recently heard news about more opportunities being created, more tax incentives being created for creators that bring productions to this area, to the state, to Northwest Arkansas. What would be your pitch as a creator, as a filmmaker, to those that are in a place that can make a decision? What would be your pitch to them?
My pitch, and funny that you asked, because I was just in Little Rock speaking to legislatures.
Okay.
So I pitch all around the room. One, that money is not going to go to creators. It's going to go to communities.
Sure.
It's going to go to makers. It's going to go to restaurants, hotels. So when we ask for that money and we say that we should receive incentives, our work or other people's work, and I'm not asking therefore because I think I'm going to benefit from it.
Yep.
I just believe that as a community, film community, Arkansas community, we will benefit from them. So by supporting these projects, by bringing these productions here, will support local communities so much and will allow for the professionals like myself to live here full time. It's really hard to be. The only reason I can do this is because I do TV. And TV often is year-round work, right? This has been a 2-year project. People that work in feature films, they only get to work for 30 days, 60 if it's, and then they have to figure out how to make the next project. So
that's why people go from one production to another.
Right.
So, yeah.
So what we're asking is support that so that more people that are professionals in decent paying jobs can live here, pay taxes, the kids can go to school, and they don't have the stress.
Yeah.
The money is not going to go to those people. They just want the work. The money is going to go back to the community.
Well, and I remember when the HBO production of True Detective was happening here. And I got to meet Mahershala Ali because he was in that season's. He was the lead detective in that season of episodes, and they were all over the place. Like you would go somewhere and you'd see a bunch of the cast and crew at breakfast, at lunch, when they weren't shooting, they were here. Like I ran into Mahershala Ali at the Whole Foods. And so, I mean, it is what people don't understand. Like you said, it's like that trickle down effect. That money goes beyond just the actual production. It goes to all of these different places in an area. So it really does support the community.
Yeah. All that incentive money almost always has to be put back into the budget.
Right.
Meaning you have a $10 million budget and you get, let's say, $2 million incentive. Now you have a $12 million budget.
Right.
It's going to go into the production.
Sure.
Not going anywhere else. The money,
So now you can go to a really nice caterer in Northwest Arkansas and hire them to provide food for the show for the next month and a half.
Yeah.
And that little bit of money provided to that caterer can be the difference of, could be what they would normally make in, a year's time or something like that. So, I mean, I think people need to recognize that. All right. So in terms of specifically, do you have one piece of advice about how can the creative economy in Northwest Arkansas better support filmmakers like you?
As would be that people support projects that are long-term.
Yeah. Ideas
that are long-term.
Yeah.
Supporting projects that are seasonal, that are grant-based. That doesn't help. Help you in the moment, but we won't build anything sustainable if we don't have a long-term commitment. So projects like mine, going back, really connecting to what you just was saying, if my project, let's say that you have $1 million project, and in my case, I had to spend all that money in Austin.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I had to get paid. I pay taxes here. I pay income tax, all that. Everything else is going out. Most of that money I could have spent here. And if I have the team to spend that money here, I can build other projects. So just in my case, I could easily manage 5, 6 productions of the same level. You multiply that by as many as you can support, and then suddenly you have a pretty small but sustainable economy that then will support other economies.
Yeah.
So in my problem here is always people not committing to things long term, right? If you want to make really a big impact, you need at least a 5-year plan in anything that people with money and resources, which we have many of those here,
Absolutely,
to commit to, you know?
So do you feel like it's just a lack of being able to communicate with those with resources and means in terms of convincing them of the benefit of this? Because money is going to certain things here in Northwest Arkansas. You think of the trail system, when you think of mountain biking, when you think of the outdoor recreation community is huge here, and people are really putting a lot of money into that. Obviously, Alice Walton has put a lot of money into the arts, and now she's putting money into education, specifically with the Alice Walton School of Medicine. There is got to be a place where money can be put into the creative economy in terms of what is possible and what could actually be birthed right here in Northwest Arkansas that could be exported to the world.
I think if they put the money into the industry, into the culture, our part of the culture, when it comes to film, media, radio, podcasts, all these things, the result will be pretty evident. And I think, again, in a 5-10 year return.
Yeah.
The problem, I think, is a lot of people have this conversation already.
Right.
And sometimes we get the answer that we think we want. And then next year, things change. And also, to be fair with the people with the money, too, I understand that a lot of people come asking for things and promising the world.
Right.
You know, and I think this has happened many times where someone will come and say, I'm turning this into the next Hollywood, just give me money. And maybe the first time you give it, and then you realize, all this money is going away.
Yeah.
Then you don't trust the next person. Just like when people say, I'm going to make a movie here, blah, blah, over and over. So I wish there was more trust. And I wish that people that are here, like myself, who I can prove that I moved here not for that reason. Right. And I was able to develop a project like that here with a lot of effort. And now I have a proof of concept in my case, like you do with your podcast.
Right.
I mean, what else can you do, right?
Yeah, that's true. You got to put the time in.
Okay, so you want to multiply this. If you want to have Randy create a national hit, that requires money.
Yeah.
Requires research, requires a team. And then you go and then you compete with American Life and all these people.
Right.
You can.
Right. And it can be done here. It can easily be done here, but it does require money to do it.
So we, the talent, the creators, we are an export. And I think they need to understand this, like Walmart, that's what they do. JB Hunt, that's what they do. For us, we need to export IP. And because of media, because of technology, we can create it right here. So the IP that we can create is going to be directly related to how much investment we have. If I have 10 people helping me research, instead of doing it myself, I can develop 10 projects. And then that multiplies. And I've done these models in LA with venture capitalists. I almost ran a whole national network one time. And all those ideas, when I can hear, I say, oh, I'll just do it here.
Right.
And I'm still willing to do it. You know, maybe a smaller scale.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, trust the process, give it time, and think about IP as not just us telling local stories, which is really important, but it's exporting IP. What we do has huge potential for revenue models, different models. Sure. It's like, think about it, we can export the content. So what I do here, or what I think we can do as a whole, is develop IP. That's, I think, like, based on where we live and the tools that we have, it's not like, we're not going to build huge movie studios here. I don't want that, you know? I want to develop huge projects, huge ideas that can be made wherever.
Yeah.
You know?
And they're not, you're not confined to the, Benton and Washington County.
Right.
But a lot of the work can happen here, but you can go out to the world, kind of like what you're doing right now.
Yeah. I don't want a movie studio. I want a bigger airport.
Yeah.
That would help me.
Well, and I was just thinking as you were saying that it would be nice to get like 2 nonstop flights to LA a day, 2 nonstop flights to New York a day. I think we have a few, or at least I should say we have a couple of flights to New York. It'd be nice to have 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. Just need a little bit more frequency about that. So, Andrew Branch and the good folks at XNA Airport, they're doing a great job expanding and remodeling that. A few more in what I think they call them enplanements would make a huge difference.
Oh, yeah. That would change my life. It would change so many people's lives.
Yeah.
It will allow people to do business here in a way that now is impossible.
Right.
Nobody wants to keep doing Zoom calls.
Yeah.
People want to shake hands, kiss babies, and break bread, right?
Oh, man. Yeah, you said a mouthful. All right, well, listen, let's do this because I think we could go on and on with this conversation. I think that you have really given us some things to think about here, especially for those that are creators that are listening to this episode. But I do want to promote City of Songs. And when and where can people start watching City of Songs?
City of Songs will premiere on PBS, national PBS. It will be released, I guess that's maybe an easier way to explain it, on May 15th.
Okay.
Right.
May 15th,
first
2025.
Episode, Austin will be released May 15th on all platforms. It will be available for broadcast, wherever. Easiest way to watch is going to be the PBS app. Easy to download, free to watch, PBS website. And then we'll be releasing weekly episodes for 6 weeks.
Okay.
And will be available for free to everyone on all those platforms for 90 days.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And then what's the plan for season 2? And is there, maybe if not season 2, another season, will there be any chance that NWA gets a spotlight in the episode at some point in time down the road? Is that your hope?
Everyone wants to know that. That would be amazing. So my answer to that is usually the easy answer is no. But the true answer is yes. The goal is, what is the city, right? That's a big question behind the show. Like first episode, first season, first 2 seasons, we need to focus in really large cities. But even before we started this, it's like, and especially for the work that I've done here already, it's like, what is really a city?
Right.
Where does the limit to those cities are? So I think a normal evolution for this show is, instead of looking at places as cities, is looking at places as regions.
Okay.
Right. So what is the combined cultural power that we have here? It's not Fayetteville. It's not Bentonville. Is it the Ozarks? Is it the Delta? So I think if we were to do an episode here that was discussed back in the day, it would have to be more about larger region.
Yeah. Well, the region of Northwest Arkansas. Yeah. Which would be kind of cool because there's actually a specific music scene that has existed here for a long time. And then, we think about like all of the local haunts like George's Majestic and so many others. And then you think about the evolution of the AMP. And then, of course, just what the Momentary has now brought to the scene with all, I've seen the Roots here. I've seen a lot of amazing acts that have come here to Northwest Arkansas. And I'm always bragging to people. I'm like, we've got some big names here. So, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Another thing now that you're saying that reminds me of something. So I also think about City of Songs is not just a TV show. It is, I don't want to call it a brand because that sounds too commercial, but think about it, City of Songs is an idea. And the TV show right now on PBS is just one way to present that idea. Our goal is always to have City of Songs to be something that is organic in different places, right? We could do a City of Songs that is just about this area.
Yep.
And is maybe not the same PBS show, but it's something else. We talk about taking City of Songs to other countries where people, local hosts, and they explore the country, different cities. So I think our goal and the reason part of not giving up that we were talking about earlier is that there's a bigger vision here than just finishing a TV show. And it's how can we expand this idea to other places that are maybe not so obvious to the outside. So more on that.
Yes.
Nice.
That's a definite to be continued right there. I love that. So Mario Troncoso, for anybody that wants to get connected or in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, Instagram probably is the easiest way.
Okay. And you'll give me your Instagram handle and we'll share that. So, and then we'll make sure that anybody listening to this, we'll put all of the information about City of Songs on the show notes. If you're listening to this after City of Songs gets released or sometime down the road, just, look up Mario Troncoso and City of Songs online. You'll also be able to look them up on the PBS app. And definitely get the PBS app. I highly recommend it. I'm a huge fan of PBS. I grew up with Sesame Street, and it is a great program, and the app is awesome. So I want to encourage you to check it out. But thank you so much for joining us today and kind of sharing your story and what's going on. And it's an honor. You're a twofer. I've had you on twice now, so it's great to have you back on the podcast. And we appreciate all the work that you're doing, and wish you and Troy nothing but continued success in all of your endeavors. And of course, if you need anything from us, don't ever hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Randy. It was an honor to be here again.
Absolutely. Well, in real life this time, because the last time we did it via Zoom.
A COVID podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's all good. Well, thank you so much. And we really appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next time, Mario.
All right. Thank you.
That. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. We hope you enjoyed this. Definitely check out City of Songs. We'll put a link to all of the things that Mario discussed in the show notes. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time at hello@IamNorthwestArkansas.com. Remember, our podcast comes out every Monday, rain or shine. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and we'll see you back here next week with another new episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.
Attention Northwest Arkansas businesses and talent seekers. Introducing OnboardNWA.com, your hyperlocal job board crafted for our unique community. Struggling to find the perfect match for your job openings? Onboard NWA simplifies the hiring process, connecting you with the region's top talent through tailored talent matching solutions. Whether you're an employer seeking expertise or a professional looking for your next opportunity, Onboard NWA is here for you. Discover more at onboardnwa.com, and let's build the future of Northwest Arkansas together.